Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a very special night for, let me make sure I read what he wrote, for a very special man. Tonight we are saying thank you and congratulations to Bill Powell. Is that okay, Bill? No, indeed. This is indeed a wonderful night, and we do feel privileged to be able to host a toast to a man who has spent 40 years entertaining and enlightening and just being a darn nice guy. And we're privileged to be here tonight.
That is the bottom line. A little bit about Bill Powell, the man. Bill Powell began his career in Middle Georgia in the 1950s and quickly became one of Macon's best-known radio personalities. Now all of us know Bill as one of Macon's best-known television personalities. Bill, from all of us tonight, much love, congratulations, and welcome.
We have a couple of special presentations. Start with this one right here. This is from the city of Miami, Florida. A special salute to William R. Bill Powell, graduate of Miami Technical High, class of 1951. On the occasion of his retirement as senior weathercaster at 13 WMAZ-TV in Macon, Georgia, presented on behalf of the City Commission by Joe Carollo, Mayor of Miami. The city of Miami, Florida, saluting Bill Powell. And one more thing. Let me reach around you here, Miss Tina. Thank you very much.
Protocol.
Indeed. Bill, we have a special flag here. This is to certify that the accompanying flag was flown over the United States Capitol on June 1st, 1998. At the request of the Honorable Saxby Chambliss, Member of Congress, the flag was flown for Bill Powell in recognition of his many, many years of service to WMAZ and Middle Georgia. And Bill, I would like to present this to you right now. We have three very special presenters to start off with, beginning with Brigadier General Robert L. Scott, Jr., who would like to honor Bill for his many years of contributions to the Museum of Aviation. We also have with us June Lowe and Pat Vargas. They are with the Air Force Association. If you would come forward now, please.
Bill, the greatest piece of men's clothing in the world is a leather jacket, and that's what the museum's got for you. Thank you, Bill, for all the wonderful work you've done for this museum. I knew it'd be good, but not the best one in the world, but you've helped make it.
Hi, I'm June Lowe, and I'm president of the Carl Vinson Chapter 296 of the Air Force Association here in Middle Georgia. We have over 2,000 members, and we're one of the largest, probably the largest chapter in the Southeast. And Bill was president of this organization a few years ago, and I know you're going to hear more from some of our people tonight about how influential he was in some of the slogans that are important about Middle Georgia and Robins Air Force Base. But at this time, we'd like to take no more time, and we have a gift for you, Bill, and we're going to unveil it now with General Scott here, and we'll read it to you. Presented to Bill Powell in recognition of his outstanding service to Middle Georgia area, the Carl Vinson Memorial Chapter, Air Force Association, June the 6th, 1998. Bill, thank you. And it's signed especially for my friend Bill Powell. Best wishes, Bob Scott.
Our next guest is a man who has a long history with tonight's honoree. In 1982, 13 WMAZ President and General Manager Don McGurk had a vision. After realizing the popularity of Bill Powell in the radio industry for many, many years, Don believed Bill would be a natural to become 13 WMAZ's next weathercaster. Well, that was the next line, Bill. No, just kidding. Obviously, Don knew what he was doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome 13 WMAZ Vice President and General Manager Don McGurk.
If you notice, when I came up the ramp, I'm not quite as spry as Bob Scott. I'm not close to as spry as Bob Scott. You know, it seems like that I've known Bill Powell forever, but it really hadn't been that long. When I moved to town in 1968, Bill was the king of the hill for radio in this part of the world, but I didn't get to work with him until 1971, and then we didn't get to work. We got to work closely together for a few years, and then we were separated for a few years. It's like most relationships. And then we got to work closely again for the last 16, and it's been a delight. The thing that's always impressed me about Bill Powell is his dedication to his audience and to his job, his work ethic. He has come to work when he should have been in the hospital just because he knew that his listeners/viewers were depending on him. The people, back when Bill was on radio, the people of Central Georgia depended upon him to get their day started. You could get up in the morning and be grouchy, but you couldn't stay grouchy if you listened to Bill Powell in the morning. You had some chuckles, and that enabled you to go off and face the day that you had before you. Whatever might be going on in Bill's life, he was dedicated to serving the needs of his listeners. He's been the same way in his television viewers. I go in and visit with Bill from time to time, and he's not above telling me, well, Don, it's been a nice visit, but it's time for me to get ready for my next weathercast, so you need to move on now. He has that magic connection with the audience that many wish for, but few of us are granted. And Bill has been granted that. And he always says he doesn't understand it, but that magic connection is there. He's given of himself to the people of Central Georgia for over 40 years. He has given to radio listeners, television viewers, civic endeavors, charities, and to others. Those who know Bill have been enriched by the contact with him. And there is no way to replace Bill Powell. Others may do the same job, but they won't be Bill Powell. So, old friend, I want you to enjoy your well-deserved retirement.
Time now to introduce our next guest. He has been associated with our station for over 50 years. And WMAZ Radio was one of the very first stations in the area to air his radio show, The Victory Hour.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jimmy Waters.
Good morning, TZ. As we come, I've been told if this is a toast and not a roast, I'll try to keep that in mind. And you know, when you start looking at the face of a great man, a man who's just kind of been that way all his life, I love to go back to the original, back down to the roots over there in South Carolina and then to Miami and other places. And just to give you a little bit of some of the beginnings, I like to go back when a man was born, 77 years ago. And then I told you that's not the speech I want, it's another one. Yes, sir. But anyway, Bill always has had the ability to speak what he thinks. Flip Wilson was late in life by saying, what you see is what you get. That's the way it's been with Bill all along. When he was a child, even in church, in the Sunday school, the Sunday school teacher asked a question, said, who's going to get the biggest crown when they get to heaven? And nobody answered. Bill, the one what's got the biggest head, who you think? So that's kind of the way it is. He had a friend of his down in Miami that took him around to a lot of places, and then finally took him over to his house, bragging about everything they had, and Bill just got so tired of it, you know what to think. So finally, he said, well, just come in here, let me show you some of our furniture. Went in. He said, now you look at this chair. This chair goes all the way back to Louis XIV. Well, Bill had about all he could take. He said, that ain't nothing. We got a whole living room suite goes back to Sears on the 15th if we don't pay for it. So that's kind of where you are. In his professional life, I've known 40 years of his professional life. He used to put me on the air every morning, and it was such a delight because we were all live and in living color. We didn't have anything to record on, so we all had to kind of face each other and do it. And that's really the way that we came to really be good, close, and bosom friends. But he started radio down in Miami. It was a little 250-watt station, good for what, 5 miles, maybe 7 miles on a rainy day out here, you know. So Bill was the engineer. Well, things, as you might imagine, when plan 1 doesn't work, you got to use plan 2. Somebody had to get on the air. He'd never been on before. He walked up to this big microphone on a 250-watt station. The first thing he said was, "Hello, world." And so there he was, lost and caught. And he's been there ever since. And on the big 50-kilowatt voice, he went until later his work changed. Now, when he moved to television, he had a kind of a mixed emotion. He had a traumatic thing, to tell you the truth. And he had to learn all the little things you do with the camera you didn't do with the microphone. You know, you flip a switch and move the mic back and forward. You can do all you want to. But when you're live out there, you've got to be able to perform. So they took him out to the station, down into the studios, and said, "Bill, now these are the 1, 2, 3s. One of the things we have to learn in TV is the time signals. And they start off by 5 minutes out beside the camera. And if they're not sure that you see it, they kind of work their hand this way a little bit just to get your attention. And there's something about the performer with the eyes or just a little nod or a friendly, you know, this is it, I got it. But somehow or other, Bill had it all together, but sometimes he gets it like a blotter. You soak it all up and get it all backwards. And so out beside the camera he was on, and the first time ever on a live camera, and they gave him 5 minutes, and he didn't catch it. So they lifted up a little more, 5 minutes. And finally, you know, they got it like this, and Bill didn't know what to do. He said, "Hello out there." Yeah. So, you know, I mean, I like a guy who can do whatever has to be done, and that's kind of the way that it is. They also told me how much time we had, and I'm trying to speak as fast as I can. That's no problem for me because my father was an auctioneer and my mother was a woman. So you go on from there. Good morning, Billy Oldham. All right. Yes, sirree. But when he transferred and made that transition, he came to another place. But he came in the Weather Bureau. It was all right until one night he talked about how beautiful it's going to be. The sun's going to shine in the morning. The moon is out tonight. You know, he loves to say plenty of sunshine tomorrow, moonshine tonight. He went through all of that. And everything was fine till he walked in home and Sandy met him at the door and he was dripping wet. So, you know, you got to practice what you preach, Bill. Don't ever forget that. Now let me just take the remaining moments and change the attitude just a little bit. As Paul Harvey says, let me tell you something of the rest of the story. I know that Bill is a man of a profound Christian faith. He loves to joke with everybody he sees, and if there's no trouble brewing, he'll start something. You know that. But when you boil him down to what he really is, in his heart, and the man who lives and who is and who continues to be. I think one of the greatest things you can say about an individual is he's just the same every day. And this is a way that I looked at Bill. We've talked about radio and we've talked about TV, but back in the radio days, he kept me on a straight line, and we did a lot of things together, and I just appreciated what he is. One of the reasons is I did a religious broadcast, and he was inside him a religious man. I know that he has been into Bible studies and this kind of thing. He's a person who in his heart knows what to believe, and he believes it. And he practices it. And as you look back across the annals of the years and the history of his own life, you'll come to appreciate him more and more as days go on. Bill, the Bible says that a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver and gold. I know you, and I love you, and I appreciate you for what you are and for what you've always been. My favorite writer of English literature is Robert Browning. And let me just quote you a portion of one of his poems, and I dedicate this to you because this is the way I feel. Grow old along with me. The best is yet to be. The last of life for which the first is made. Our times are in his hand, who saith, a whole I'd planned. Youth shows but half. Trust God, see all, nor be afraid.
I remember him as Central Georgia's Mr. Radio, and perhaps you remember him as Mr. Radio. Now, his daily show featured his listeners' questions and comments, and they were constantly greeted by one of his signature phrases. Hello out there, keep on keeping on. And that's keep on keeping on. Exactly. And don't you never call me again. That was my favorite one.
That's the one he used to use on me.
Both of us. And during this time, Bill developed and maintained a friendship for over 30 years with the fellow WMAZ radio cohort.
Please welcome former WMAZ radio sales manager, Mr. Otis Hughes. All right.
Come on, Coco. You know, to come up here and follow so closely after Jimmy Waters, and Jimmy talks about Robert Browning, I want Jimmy to know that my favorite figure out of literature is sitting right over here, and he wrote, God is my co-pilot, and General Scott, I read it every year, over and over and over. I was told, like the rest of these guys, that this is not a roast. It's supposed to be a nice, pleasant evening with no snide remarks, that I should congratulate Bill and say nothing but sweet, kind things to him. But on the same day they called me and gave me that admonition, I heard this sweet, kind Bill turn to Frank Malloy and say, Frank, did you hear about the man who asked the waitress, what's this bug doing in my soup? And she said, I'm not sure, but I think it's the backstroke. And how do you say sweet, nice things to a person who can pull that on? In spite of your ribald humor, you're a good person, Bill. You are really a good person, and I do heartily congratulate you and wish you well. And despite your lengthy time in television, I want to tell you that I have never been convinced that God meant for pictures to fly through the air. So give me just a few moments to remember a few of the good radio times we had. You and I had a parallel affinity for radio. You wanted to perform. Your hero was Al Jolson, I know well because you've told me so many times. You studied early in life to prepare for a career in broadcast, and as a Florida 12-year-old, you were reading the Bible of show business, Variety magazine. I couldn't even read until I was 20. But I loved commercials, and I never told you this, but as a 15-year-old, and I really mean it, I once memorized every commercial running on WMAZ radio. Of course, we didn't have as many back in that day as they do now. I was weirder than you, I can tell you that. There was no way I could know that a radio buff from down in Miami would provide an ongoing meal ticket for me. But I wound up selling radio commercials in the Bill Powell radio show and in the Atlanta Braves baseball broadcast and in the Bill Elder show. And since you, Bill, worked to secure the Braves broadcast and you brought Bill Elder into town, or into the station, it might be argued that without you, I would have starved to death a long time ago. Now, I'm serious about this. Would you believe the audacity of Don McGurk's quotation in the Macon Telegraph, saying it was a big joke how he stole Bill Powell away from radio to become a TV weatherman? A big joke. It's with great reluctance that I admit publicly this evening that it was I who hired Don McGurk to begin his WMAZ career. I've tried my best to justify that down through the years ever since, but I get saddled with the blame year after year. Bill, you remember the weather on radio? I can hear you giving that forecast right now. Mostly cloudy, hot and humid with widely scattered afternoon and evening thunder showers. High today, 90, low tonight, 72 or so. And the Milledgeville River reading at Macon, 3.5 feet. Well, you didn't have a Doppler, you didn't have computers, and that was all we knew to do back in that day. And even then, we weren't sure we were anywhere near right. One of my favorite memories is when Richard Johnson filled in one day and left out the decimal point. He said, the Milledgeville River reading at Macon is 75 feet. He had folks running for the hills. Remember the day, Bill, that you put Howard Absalom on the afternoon radio with news of a fierce storm that was coming through Macon, and Howard was reporting from his car over on College Street. You could hear a lot of angry horn blowing in the background. Though he was an ace reporter, Howard had very poor eyesight. And somehow he had gotten over into the wrong lane, and he was stopped facing head on into the oncoming traffic, and nobody could move. You remember the day you put Howard on the air from Warner Robins, and Howard had to be rescued out on the air base because he was driving under the wing of a taxiing B-52. We had that on really good authority, but Bill always found that a little bit difficult to believe. I did too. How about another good WMAZ newsman you will remember? I won't call his name, but this news hawk reported from his car, I'm at the scene now. This is an awful accident out here, and one man has had his leg decapitated. He took English grammar from Bill, that's what he did. Your picture in the Telegraph, Bill, has been lately on page 2, upper left corner. I guess everybody's seen it. The same place that Joseph N. Neal Company had an award-winning ad for many, many years. Every day for Neal's radio commercial, we had to get the newspaper, and the announcer would ad-lib from this ad printed in the paper. One morning, they were advertising light-colored summer suits for men. And the colors were all preceded by LT, meaning light. But our old friend Tommy Snellgrove, you remember Tommy Snellgrove urged his listeners to visit Neal's and choose from Lieutenant Green, Lieutenant Brown, and Lieutenant Blue. Yeah, those were the good days, Bill. Bill, the way you have poked unmerciful fun at poor old Frank Malloy over here, that's not been a new thing for Bill, folks. You did the same thing for many months with co-host Jimmy Vinson on radio. And some of you newcomers won't remember these days. You did it so successfully that it became the talk of the town. Everybody thought they were really at each other's throats, you know. And Bill sort of won the deal that Jimmy wound up leaving town and leaving you with the plum job as the sole MAZ morning announcer. And that was really a broadcast turning point for Bill Powell. Bill's advertisers always loved him too, folks. One asked me to invite Bill to visit him at his new restaurant up in Monroe County for an evening meal on the house. Bill finally agreed to go. He didn't want to, but he did. He finally agreed to go one night. It was very timely because this was just before payday. But when he got there, had a big meal up there, but Bill grinned and he remembers this night. But when he got there, the owner had gone home for the evening, and he had forgotten to tell anyone about our bill. Also about the bill, which our bill wound up having to pay. Bill told me the next day he knew that they were going to have him arrested up there. But he finally managed to dig up just enough cash for the bill, no cash for the tip, and he drove back to Macon with a total of 5 cents in his pocket. Albert Sanders came to his rescue and gave him a requisition for the money, and I think we mailed the tip to the waitress. Bill, you remember when you and I flew to Texas for an Army demonstration? The airplane's props locked in reverse when we landed at one city. Later, a general came out and commandeered our chopper that we were supposed to take over to the Army post. We had to ride a bus over some distance to the Army post. There we went into a large building on a drill field. We went to hear then Secretary of Defense Elliot Richardson. And while we were inside that building, a tornado tore up the drill field outside. And the chopper we were supposed to have been on crashed with some significant loss of life. We were able to file some timely news copy with Associated Press, but I began to wonder that day about the advisability of ever traveling with you. Now, seriously, Bill, remembering these things has brought a flood of stories to my mind, as you might well realize. It's been great fun. It's been a wonderful life. You and I had our times together. We were at each other's throats from time to time, and you generally won. You had some good people on your side. I'm sincerely indebted for all you have done for our beloved WMAZ and for everybody in the Middle Georgia community. I have 12 years seniority on you as far as this retirement business is concerned. I can safely predict tonight that you will never retire. Oh, young Mr. Smith will manhandle the Doppler for you, and you won't have to make weekly visits to the paymaster with that heavy wheelbarrow to carry all that money in. But you will walk those familiar halls daily, and you will talk with those good people daily, people like Tina and Frank, like Edward, like old Tony Pavone, Robert Childs, all of your weather buddies, Mary and Dorothy, Sidney, Don, and yes, many who are now golden memories like Albert Sanders and Frank Crowther, Red Cross, George Rankin, Howard and Tommy and Richard Johnson, and TZ too. What a legend you created with that hello out there and TZ hollering back, all right, how you do? You'll be there every day in your mind and in your heart, content to let others fly the plane while you relax and enjoy the scene. Pax vobiscum, Bill. Cheers, and good luck.
Time to go back into the late 1960s. Bill Powell hired a bright-eyed, young 15-year-old DJ at WMAZ Radio. Unfortunately, a short time later, Bill fired that same bright-eyed 15-year-old DJ. However, amazingly enough, this young man managed to keep his radio career afloat quite successfully, we might add. He is now a fixture in Central Georgia as Macon's most popular disc jockey.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Bill Elder.
Well, thanks for lowering the mic for me. Yeah, right. I think I'm a professional. I could do that. Thank you very much. Oh, mercy. Bill, Sandy, your family, WMAZ family, and distinguished guest, I have an apology tonight. I thought we were here to pay a tribute to Billy Sowell. There was a mistake. I've never met this man before in my life. I'm just joking. Oh, goodness. I think we're all here for the same reason, and that is to see if Jimmy Waters could deliver a speech in under 5 minutes. But you did. You did great. I'm serious. That was good. I phoned in a pledge while you were talking. I was out next to the phone, and this light started going around. You know, I thought, yeah, this is good. Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Incidentally, if Bill was not able to make it here tonight, Steve Malone was going to sit in that chair until he was able to get here and trade out that way. A little radio humor. So if you look at your ticket stubs, tonight's Coco number is 2353. I got to tell you, this is, I owe you for all the Malox I know you must have taken while I was on the air. This is the kind of guy Bill Powell is. He gives a 15-year-old kid that was in love with radio his first chance. Now, I'll explain to you. The hardest thing to do in radio is to get a job in radio, and you can't get a job unless you have a job. And Bill took a chance on a kid. Now put your mind back in 1970. The Vietnam War is ending, and as a 15-year-old with about a third-grade education, I have to read an 11 o'clock newscast. Do you remember this? I made places in Vietnam sound like a menu at Yamato's. Nobody knew what had happened in the war, but they all wanted to eat Oriental after it was over. Like, I don't know what's going on, dear. You want to call out for egg foo young? But what you gave me, your training, the people that I trained with, the atmosphere of WMAZ, what they taught me has still stayed with me. Yeah, I love Jim Pryor's phrase, things aren't the same since the kids took over. But it was such an incredible experience to cut my teeth on that kind of radio. And to have a man that I had admired and loved on the air for so many years to give me my first break and to teach me. And I'll never be able to thank you enough for that. And I'll always carry with me the things that I learned during that time. What an incredible legacy this man lives and what he leaves with us. Keep on keeping on. Don't you never call back. Every day is Air Force Appreciation Day. The check's in the mail. That's mine, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All of these phrases we've taken to be our own. And he's given them to us, and it's a part of Middle Georgia. It's who we are. Bill Powell made a morning show look so easy that you thought anybody could do it. And I'm here to tell you how hard it is. But he did it every day, consistently, like playing a musical instrument. He is a broadcast professional. You know, anybody can get a radio show. Anybody can get on television. But he is a professional broadcaster. And I hope we have many more like you in the future. And thank you for all of you have done for me and for so many in Middle Georgia. And one last thing is I am proud, especially, that you claim the name of God both personally and professionally. God bless you, Bill. Thank you.
Now we'd like to welcome a very special guest, a Georgia native, began his public service career in 1967 when he volunteered for duty in Vietnam. 10 years later, he was appointed by President Jimmy Carter to head the U.S. Veterans Administration. He was the youngest VA administrator ever and the first veteran of Vietnam to head the agency.
In 1996, he was elected by Georgia voters to replace Sam Nunn in the United States Senate. He has served his country in many capacities and has been named one of Time magazine's rising Democrats. He has also been called the genuine article, an authentic American hero. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm Central Georgia welcome for Senator Max Cleland.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The preceding was a paid political announcement. Well, I have to share with you, I have, quite frankly, been astounded. I have been, as many of you have, been to a lot of toasts and roasts. I don't think I've ever seen such an eclectic group of people come and say something nice about the same person. A radio preacher who condenses a 30-minute sermon in 5 minutes. Jimmy Waters, my dear friend, who was with us at Forsyth County when we, with the State Patrol. He's done marvelous work as a chaplain, as many of you know. I happened to take to the line that he quoted from the Bible that a good name is to be treasured more than riches. I figured for you, Bill, 1 out of 2 ain't bad. And for the ad guy, for radio, the radio ad guy was up here talking about the crack MAZ reporter caught under the wing of a B-52 taken off. I thought that was pretty clever. You have had so many incredible experiences in your life. I think that's one of the great stories. You have survived all of these people here. Let me just say, I first came across the MAZ family, and I feel like I am part of it, when the television station was out in the woods, way out there, somewhere near the heart of Georgia, out there somewhere. And I was desperate for TV time. I was running for lieutenant governor in August of 1973. I'll never will forget it. And I went into the station, and they made me feel so warm and welcome. Doris Martin was there. Later, Del Ward and I have had a chance to be on the air together. And Stan Carey, I can remember him from the early days. I've had a lot of friends with MAZ through the years, and I feel like a part of the family, which is one of the reasons I'm here. I think you've lasted so long, not just because you were a great engineer and a great radio person and a great TV personality, but because you literally linked up with the people to whom you communicated, which is a lesson for us all, really. We all can learn a great deal from you. You've been real, and you've been honest, and that's why you got so many buddies out there who identify with you. They see in you their own human frailties, as a matter of fact. They are nervous when they get on camera. They don't know the answers all the time, and they certainly don't know about the weather. And you have been able to identify with them and speak for their insecurities and needs. He's wondering why you're laughing. I mean, he's up here. But you got a lot of buddies. You've won a lot of people over to you, and to your wonderful causes, too. I think that says a lot about you. I mean, Warner Robins is incredible and wonderful, wonderful Air Force installation. Not many people know this. Now, I'm on the Senate Armed Services Committee. I'm able to dig into some records and so forth. Back during the war, that's the war, Bill did some work secretly with the early computers for the Army. And MacArthur was using one of the early computers to analyze the invasion at Leyte Gulf in the Philippines, and he programmed in the enemy terrain, the enemy forces, the friendly forces, and the weather, and he asked the computer which side of the island to invade, and the computer whirled and stuttered, and about 30 seconds later spit out the answer, yes. And MacArthur challenged the computer and said, yes, what? And the computer sputtered and whirled, and 30 seconds later it said, yes, sir. So, done a lot of work with the military early on. Thank you for all the 99 ways that you have worked for this marvelous community, have related to this marvelous community. You are the personification of how the rest of us should view our jobs and the challenge that we have when we communicate with people. I just wish we had as many buddies as you do on this marvelous night. And seeing this incredible night put together, quite frankly, I think that for a long time, Bill, every day in Middle Georgia has been Bill Powell Appreciation Day. And we appreciate you so much, and we hope you just continue to keep on keeping on. You inspire us all. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our friend and your friend, Mr. Bill Powell.
You going to raise the mic for me?
It's going to take it away from you.
I'm humbled and honored. In case you're wondering, emphysema has me in bad shape, and walking and talking wins me considerably. That's why I haven't been able to finish a weathercast too easy lately. But Otis and Bill Elder and Jimmy Waters and Matthews, they wouldn't let you say what you really wanted to say, would they? I asked Bill Elder if he heard my last radio show. He says, I hope so. No respect. I told Don McGurk after I heard a little bit about what was going to happen tonight, I says, I've changed my mind. He said, the hell you have. So that's the way it goes. And General Robert L. Scott, Scotty, you have enriched my life, not only through knowing you, but reading your books. The last one I read, you may have written another one after that, The Day I Owned the Sky. First place, I'm surprised you're still alive after reading that book. I'm surprised you ever made rank above captain. Scotty is Halley's Comet comes every 75 years. Hadn't been too many years since it came again. Scotty's the only one I ever saw who said, well, there it is again. Senator Max Cleland is an inspiration to so many people. My most unforgettable, lighthearted experience with then Secretary of State Max Cleland was when he spoke at a Air Force Association function at Robins Air Force Base. And he was Secretary of State, and when he first started, he says, people ask him, what does the Secretary of State of Georgia do? And he says his main function was to prevent an invasion by South Carolina, Tennessee, and Alabama.
And he says, of course, as most of us know, the only thing good that comes out of Alabama is I-20. And I'll never forget that. And I've had the pleasure of working with and for Dodie Cantrell for many years. It's a good thing they didn't let her come up here and speak. And if Edward McDonald will come up here, I'll hug him again, as we did on the 6 o'clock news. Forget it, Edward. Forget it, Edward. It's a kiss next time. Oh, okay. And somebody asked me the other day, when I leave, who's going to keep Frank Malloy straight? And I told him they're probably going to have to let him go because I don't know anybody who can. Frank makes a good straight man, but every now and then he wants to be on the other side, and that's why I hate him. But Frank, as I have described him to many people when I lied, is the original American Boy Scout. I mean that sincerely. He's a terrific family man. He's extremely lazy. And Tina Hicks is one of the most lovely ladies, inside and outside, that I've ever known in my life. And she says it won't be long before those hot flashes. And I told her when they come, would she mind if I snuggled up to her? This past week has been sort of an emotional roller coaster for me, but I've trained myself all my life not to show much emotion. It's not that I'm not emotional, I just try not to show it. I keep it inside. And I got up early this morning, about 6 o'clock, and I got the paper, and I was telling Ed Corson that I read the editorial, and I started crying. It touched me greatly. I don't understand why people think of me this way, but I'm very humbled and honored that you do. And in case you're wondering why I might be shedding tears now, it's because I'm thinking of all the money I'm going to lose. I mean, Social Security and pension benefits, you know. But it's been my pleasure. And may God bless all of you. Thank you very much.
It is your night, Bill, and we toast you and your many accomplishments, and we praise you for the many years of service to the community. And we admire your impressive career in radio and television, and we thank you for your many, many, many years of friendship.
I can't remember what I used to do, who I trusted, who I listened to before. I swear you've taught me everything I know. Can't imagine needing someone so, but through the years it seems to me I need you more and more. Through the years, through all the good and bad, I know how much we had. I've always been so glad to be with you. Through the years, it's better every day. You've kissed my tears away. As long as it's okay, I'll stay with you.